Hello, subscribers and viewers of my channel. Let's talk a little about the moon and try to understand what it really is. We've heard so many debates and hypotheses, but no one has been able to definitively prove what the moon is, even despite the so-called flights to space. Even the so-called photos and videos provided to us as evidence, allegedly by scientists, do not inspire confidence in many people. So, what is the moon? I call it an object because in reality, it is indeed an unidentified object. It hangs somewhere above us and serves more of a technical purpose rather than just being a satellite of Earth, as we've been told. They told us in school, or rather they brainwashed us in school, that the moon is Earth's satellite. They showed us a couple of photos and said that some people flew there. Naturally, as children relative to the current time and level of knowledge, we believed it and ingrained it in our heads as truth. After all, people flew to space and landed on the moon, so they must know. And since it was shown on TV and taught in school, there must be no doubt about it. Oh, school. But never mind. We are not children anymore, and if you are on this channel, then you have likely realized that we have been lied to since school and continue to be lied to. Only now the parameters of this lie have increased and the stakes have risen significantly. And the funniest thing is that the followers of the system like to respond as if by a template, or, as is trendy to say now, by the same playbook, like, if you skip school, the whole world will seem mysterious. Or even funnier, they write about physics. But what does physics have to do with it? They themselves do not understand. When asked to explain this or that phenomenon using physics, they remain silent. But the main thing is to write about the ignorance of physics with a smart face. It seems to make them feel better, and they mistakenly believe that they are smarter than everyone and elevate themselves above others. But we are not them. Our minds rejected this program code somewhere on a subconscious level, so we move forward, develop, and seek the correct information. So, back to the moon. The first thing that seems strange about this object is how meteorites could hit its surface from the side facing Earth. Plus, why is the depth of all the craters the same, despite the craters being of different diameters? Why are there no horizontal glancing blows, and all of them are perfectly round? Many believe it was a missile or other attack from Earth. But again, why are all the craters of the same depth? No, there's something else here. If we think about it and draw some conclusions, it becomes apparent that this is more likely the casing of this object. But casing for what? To protect the object, or just to distract and mislead us, claiming these are meteorite impacts to create further fairy tales about space and deepen the population's slumber. What other theories do we have about the moon? Is it a hologram or a physical object? To be honest, I've studied this question for a long time, but I have not come to a definite conclusion. What do we know about holograms? Nothing. We only know the crude level of terrestrial technologies that we are allowed to know about. But we know absolutely nothing and can only guess about the level of holograms of those who are behind the external management of the park. Therefore, it's hard to say about the quality of our crude human holograms compared to those who manage this place from outside. I am sure that these are not humans, which means the level could be so high that it is difficult for our blocked minds to comprehend. Our minds, which are daily muted by various psychotronic devices. Perhaps the moon object is one of these devices, more precisely the nearest main-directed antenna. But if this is the case, then the moon is still a physical object that affects our minds like other objects in this park, called planets. But we are not talking about them now. Regarding the far side of the moon and the landing of the Chinese on it, this is generally from the realm of bedtime stories. They showed some cartoons, and that's it. Everyone believed. This is like the fairy tales about Luna 25. Remember that? How can a sane person believe in this? Some certainly did not fall for this nonsense. We also remember the hypothesis that the moon object is a reflection of the Earth on plasma. Well, I don't know, friends. There are some sound thoughts in this version, but it doesn't quite reach full logical completeness. For me personally, it has its counter-arguments. What do you think? Write in the comments. At this stage of my development, the version that the moon object is still a physical body is closer to me. But it's impossible to reach it from our park. At least not us. Not from here. And not on such junk as those actors allegedly fly into space. And what space? You can't fly to what doesn't exist. But to be more precise, there is something there, but it's not the space we've been beautifully singing about since early childhood. There is something completely different. But the dream, do they fly somewhere? Yes, they fly somewhere above, relative to the Earth and the observer. The ISS is a separate number altogether, the purpose of which is completely unclear after many years of alleged flights. What useful thing has been done or discovered all this time? Driving people into a stall. Well, perhaps that's something they do well. All right, the moon is important to us, and they can continue flying on their film set. So, the moon object is most likely physical, and it is impossible to reach it for a person from this park, since it is not a planet or a satellite of the Earth as we are told, but rather a technical object for either managing our park or our minds. After all, it didn't just mysteriously end up hanging above us and always turn towards us with one side, and at such a distance. What a coincidence? No, there are no coincidences in this place. The stories about tides are also myths. Completely different processes affect this. But this is a topic for another video. Maybe the moon is a server creating visual images of virtualization objects in the park for us. Perhaps the Earth and the moon are objects like computational elements created for something or someone. And we are just tools for this. For example, cities resemble the shape of electronic boards and generate energy driven by humans. We are like tiny nanobots, without which the Earth object will not fully function. To translate it into earthly language, the Earth is a processor, the moon is RAM, and so on. Perhaps I didn't express it in the correct order. After all, there are many objects called planets. It turns out that space with its mythical dark matter is just a place for the location of these objects. And humans are created to produce energy for them to work. Maybe on other objects, let's take the Saturn station, for example, where people can also be inside. Maybe they look slightly different from us. They might also have an artificial sky, sun, and be sung the same songs as us. But the true purpose of all beings there is to generate energy and maintain the so-called Saturn object in working condition. Overall, all objects form some kind of mechanism which ultimately outputs or does something very important. But not for us, for those who keep and maintain us here. I have some guesses, but I don't want to speak about them openly for now. As for leaving the park, I think there is a way out. Both physical and energetic, spiritual, whichever way is more convenient, and whoever chooses which path for themselves. This park is big, and with a physical exit, we move to so-called hidden lands or other locations, or another level of the game. There are completely different living conditions, but if you look at the conditions in our location, many are ready to travel to other lands without hesitation. Regarding the illumination of the moon object, there are many hypotheses, like it is a reflection of the sun, hence, it glows, or that the moon emits its internal light. So which of these is true? I adhere to an important rule in this park, which mostly keeps us in ignorance, and it goes like this. Do not trust your eyes, because our eyes perceive different frequencies, and the brain already draws the picture. What stands to make the initial substitution for such a visibility of what the park managers want us to see? Until you realize this, we will continue to look and prove different versions to each other. I can say one thing for sure. Much of what we see is not what it appears to be. Therefore, first of all, we need to learn to see what is hidden behind the signal that blocks, or is initially false, for our eyes or, in other words, cameras, which might be created by those who know how to bypass the protection and impose their vision of objects on us. And the moon object can have a direct impact on what we see and how. Therefore, it is important to first remove the shackles of the system and figure out ourselves. Find yourself. On this note, I will end. The video has already turned out to be long. We will return to the topic of the moon more than once, so this is just the beginning. For now, like this video if it was even a little bit useful. This motivates me to release the next video. And of course, subscribe so you don't miss new information if you wish. You've been on the channel Dream in Mind, Clear Mind and Rational Actions. Goodbye.